All righty. Good evening, Budget Committee members. Welcome to everyone, and Chair Harrington should be down in just a moment. So Vice Chair Treese, do you want to gavel us in and I'll do a roll call?
Yes. Good evening. Let's open the meeting. Here comes Chair Harrington right now.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We'll start with our budget committees. Give the chair just a second. So we'll start with North Bethany County Service District Roads. So Sarah Beachy. And you have to key your microphones to turn them on.
Good evening.
All right. Bruce Young. All right, got you, Bruce. We don't have Daniel or Mahesh, so we'll move on to ESPD, URMD. Richard Steinbergy.
I'm here.
I don't see Pragna Patel. Scott Hartneff.
Present.
Bob Zawarski.
Present.
Anthony Mills.
Present.
All right, County Budget Committee, Karen Bolin.
Present.
Joe Everton.
Here.
Melissa Laird.
Present.
Seg Ulander.
Present.
And Jeff, and I'm going to apologize, Sarafa.
Present.
All right, and Chair Harrington.
Here.
All right, Commissioner Fye.
Present.
Commissioner Treese.
Here.
Commissioner Willie.
Here.
Commissioner Snyder.
Here.
Right, Madam Chair, you have a roll call of all three of your Budget Committee members.
Great, thank you. At this point, I think we turn it over to Ms. Tanya Angie, our Budget Officer.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and I would like to introduce to your Budget Committee Interim Chief Financial Officer John Steyer, who will take the first few slides.
All right, very good. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for this important work. It's been going on for some time with our staff, and this is a culmination milestone point where we present the budget to the committees for your consideration and review, and we walk through the process. So I thank you for your service. And for those who may be online watching at home, I thank you as well for your interest in our county government process. This is the agenda we'll follow. We did roll call and introductions, and then I'll have Clerk Moss facilitate an election of the chair and vice chair for each of the committees. I'll turn it over to our county council to talk a little about rules of order. And then we'll move into the budget message with our budget officer.
And before you jump into this slide, Mr. Steyer, I do want to just orientate, and I see some of you have found in the blue folder that's at your tables, there is the slide deck for this evening. As this budget was just released at 6 p.m. this evening, we did not include an advanced slide deck for your review. So we wanted to make sure you had this available if you wanted to write notes on this this evening.
Okay, thank you. One of the documents in the blue folder is just a 3-pager on the Budget Committee procedures. So I just want to cover that briefly up front. Many of you are returning members, so you understand the procedures. Some of you are new, so I welcome you. And then for some who may be online or interested in how we conduct the committee, I'll just summarize that document.
Did everyone find that? It looks like this in your blue folder.
So the county budget committees, the Board of Commissioners oversees 5 separate taxing districts. And as you're all well aware, we have the Washington County, we have the Service District for Lighting number 1, we have the Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District, we have the Urban Roads Maintenance District, and North Bethany County Service District for Lighting. And there you can see on the slide there, the Board of Commissioners is, they're members of all of the committees. And then we have committee members who are equal in number in the other 3 committees as listed there. The purpose of the Budget Committee is to be the county's financial planning advisory committee. So we appreciate your input. You review the budget proposal, which you have here tonight. And if the majority believes necessary, you could revise the budget and make proposals. But the committees ultimately must provide a balanced budget to be approved at the end of the process. For meetings, we had a couple meetings already. We had an initial information session on 18th of March. Many of you attended to kind of, it's new this year, and it brought up to date on what's going on with the county and the budget. 2 weeks ago, we had the Budget Committee orientation meeting where we reviewed budget law and process. Today, we're presenting the proposed budget. And then future meetings on the 14th, 15th, and 20th, we'll hear the staff presentations of the budget, and you can deliberate and ask questions. So before we get into the elections for the chair and chairperson and vice chair, I just want to talk about the presiding officer of the committee and their duties as the chair or to chair the meetings and facilitate committee discussion and actions. And all members have the same degree of authority and responsibility. The chairperson offers opportunities for budget committee members' questions and discussions, offers opportunity for public testimony, and at the end of the process will facilitate committee action to vote and approve the proposed budget and levy taxes. And so with that, are any questions on the chairperson role or the committee roles?
I'd like to just ask, I know we've had at least two people here tonight, if not more, who have served as chairs before. Joe Everton, Karen Bolin, I think Richard Steinberger, you did it for ESPD and URMD last year again, right? That's right. Do you three at least want to offer any comments about what it's like to be the chair? I mean, we as board members really appreciate having one of the lay people on the committees to serve as chair, but I don't know if you're interested again or not, but I wanted to at least make sure that others who might be interested got to hear from you if there was any support for the kind of work you found yourselves needing to do in prior years.
I could share a little bit about that. So it's mostly facilitation, right? It's the Robert's Rules of Order, and a lot of it's scripted, and there's a lot of helps, and it's really just to keep the meeting running smoothly, right? So it's something anybody can read up and learn how to do, and there's always, we're all patient for it, right? For anybody who's just picking it up. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll say I ran the meeting when we were during COVID. We did it all online. And I think that was probably the most challenging thing I've ever done. A few years ago, I think the biggest decision we had to make was how long was the break going to be? 15 or 20 minutes, right? Big decisions. So I think the job is an important one. And I think the lay people as members, along with the commissioners, we're an important team. And I think I see that job as a team chair, and you just try to keep things moving along.
I can't add a lot to that, except to say that it's not a scary thing to do. And if you haven't had the opportunity to serve as a chair of one of the committees, you might want to raise your hand and volunteer to do that. I found last year when I did it for the first time, the staff support was just superb and excellent, and it was seamless, very easy to do.
Well, procedurally, I guess we need to go down each one of these and ask, I think, Sarah, you were the chair for the North Bethany Community Service District for Roads for many, many years, right? So I guess I'll facilitate at this point. For the Washington County and Service District for Lighting Number 1 Budget Committee, are there any members who would be interested? Aaron? Can't get Joe to consider it?
I could do it again.
He says with enthusiasm.
I don't want to make anybody do it, don't get me wrong.
I'd be happy to serve again, but I'd invite anyone else.
Well,
to
we're just
volunteer.
doing the first one.
We're just going to do the first column first.
The first one, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Jeff can't.
And just as a reminder, only the members of that committee will be voting, is that correct?
Yep. Joe or Karen, any thoughts between the two of you? Either one of you itching to do it this year, or?
Chair, vice chair here.
Works, I'm happy either way.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Good flip a coin.
Well,
I'll do the chair if it's, and he could be co-chair if he wants, or
Chair and vice chair.
chair and vice chair.
which one of you wants to be chair? Which one of you wants to be vice chair?
I think Karen wants to be chair.
Chair.
I'll
Okay.
do it again.
Okay.
Fine with me?
Now that we're not all in the computer, it's kind of nice.
Okay, well, do we have a motion to nominate Karen Bolin as chair and Joe Everton as vice chair for the Washington County and Service District for Lighting Number 1?
Second.
All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. So thank you, Karen, for being the chair, and Vice Chair Everton.
Madam Chair, could I point out that we have a member that just attended for the
Yes.
record?
Yeah. Pradna Patel just arrived for the ESPD URMD Budget Committee, and we are now at that point of looking for folks who would like to serve as the chair and vice chair for that committee. Anyone? Dick, would you like to do it again?
I'd be happy to, but I'd also be happy to defer to someone else if they would like the opportunity.
Say, I'll go along with the vice chair if you want to do chair.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Okay.
Madam Chair, I nominate Dick Steinbrugge as chair and Scott Hartraft as vice chair for this ESPD ERMD Budget Committee.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Bob. All those in favor of the motion, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. So we now have Dick Steinbrugge as the chair and Scott Hartraft. Did I say that right?
Works for me.
Okay, not close enough, though, as vice chair. Thank you very much. And next, we're on to the North Bethany Community Service District for Roads. And as far as I know, we only have 2 of the 4 members here tonight. 2 points make a line. Plus, you have the full board here as well. What would the 2 of you like to do?
Sure.
Sarah's volunteering to be chair. Bruce, would you like to volunteer to be vice chair?
I guess I just sort of have to.
Well, is that comfortable for you?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as I'm just backing her up.
Okay, and we're all here to support
You
you.
can feed me anything you need.
I move that Sarah be chair and Bruce be vice chair.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. So we have Sarah Beachy as chair and Bruce Young as vice chair for the North Bethany Community Service District for Roads. And now we'll turn it back over to the team.
Thank you for leading us through that, Chair Harrington.
Courtney, for our county council to talk about the rules of order.
Good evening, Budget Committee. For the record, my name is Courtney Duke-Dreesen, and I'm currently serving as interim county counsel for Washington County. And I wanted to just briefly touch on our rules of order as we go through this very important process. One of your members mentioned that we follow the Roberts Rules of Order as we conduct this meeting, which is a widely used framework of guidelines used to conduct meetings in an orderly and transparent manner. The Roberts Rules have become the standard for facilitating these types of group discussions by making sure both majority and minority voices get a chance to be heard, and is a good way to manage group decision-making. So as we go through this process, we on the slide have highlighted some of the basic rules that we will be following. And in your materials, you have a cheat sheet of sorts of some of the most basic rules and some scripts to help you work through making motions and seconding motions and how to go through deliberations. So just quickly, as was already been mentioned, the chair is the facilitator and responsible for the orderly function of the full meeting. Members must be recognized by the chair before speaking. Only one person should speak at the time, and only one question should be considered at a time. A motion is used to bring any question or topic to the floor and typically requires a second before there's deliberation and discussion. The chair does not make motions or second any motions. So our basic procedure, which is outlined in your cheat sheet, is that a member will ask to be recognized by the chair, and once recognized, they can make their motion. If the motion is seconded, the chair restates the motion that has been made and has been seconded and calls for discussion. After discussion deliberations, the chair will put the question to the committee for a vote. And there are, you'll see on your cheat sheet that there are ways to amend, and we can work motions or bring additional questions, and we can work through those processes as they arrive in our time together.
Thank you, Courtney, or Ms. Duke-Dreesen, to formally recognize you. While Robert's rules can sometimes feel intimidating if this is not the space that you're normally operating in, staff are here to support any questions procedurally that you have. Also, the Board of Commissioners is used to working with Robert's rules, so I just want to say this is meant to be the guide and facilitation for the meeting, and we want to make sure that this is a supportive environment as well.
I think I have one more slide. Just want to talk briefly about the presenters and the presentations coming up on the 14th and 15th, and to cover our Washington County budget presentations. We have 3 assistant county administrators. Aaron Calvert is our public safety and justice lead. Marnie Kyle is works A&T, housing, HHS, housing human services. Land use and transportation, the library, and she'll talk about the deflection program. And then Ann Ober will cover internal services, parks, and the fair complex. And then I will cover the non-departmental, non-operating portions of the book, and it kind of covers the flow of the book as we walk through the process and go through the presentation. The other thing I will note, so the service districts will be presented on the 20th. And we'll talk a little bit about the schedule at the very end of this presentation today. And so then more about that later. And with that, I'll hand it over to our budget officer.
Good evening, Washington County Budget Committee members. This evening, as interim CFO John Steyer indicated, I will share with you the budget message and summary. I will not be taking questions or comments on the actual proposed budget this evening unless you have procedural questions around upcoming budget committee meetings. I first want to just ground us on Washington County's mission, One Washington County, and mission, Design the Future. And these are both outlined in our board-adopted strategic plan update. This year's balanced proposed budget is provided to the Budget Committee and the public as our One Washington County organization engages in some of the most challenging work in over a decade to stabilize our financial situation. As budget officer, I know I'm not alone in having mixed emotions around how we are facing these challenges as a local government organization. On one hand, we feel great pride in pursuing our public service mission every day. This commitment to public service and our proximity to the community we serve also gives us a deep understanding of the needs we are not fully meeting year over year. On the other hand, we feel the responsibility of living within our means. As a local government, we are obligated by state law to produce a balanced proposed budget each and every year. At the end of the day, the math has to be correct. 2 + 2 has to equal 4. As this year's budget message and budget summary explain, Our resolve is being tested more than ever as we struggle within a constrained property tax system to reach the right balance point. An early look at our general fund forecast revealed a $20.5 million gap between revenues and expenditures, the fifth such gap we've experienced in many years. Proposed taxes from our permanent tax rate, provide the lion's share of revenue to the general fund. The part of the budget that Washington County has the most flexibility over when it comes to spending decisions. For nearly 3 decades, property taxes have been constrained by provisions in the Oregon Constitution that restrict the source of revenue to the point that it no longer covers the cost of communities' increasing size and need for many county services, including a growing list of services mandated by law. Again, this ongoing challenge means the cost of our services to our community is outpacing our ability to fund them through the general fund. Washington County is not alone. Other local governments rely on property tax revenue in Oregon have also recently announced budget shortfalls anticipated for this next fiscal year. Most county governments are having to close budget gaps this year, including those here in Portland metro area and other parts of the state. Roughly a third of Oregon's 241 city governments are also facing similar challenges, according to a survey by the League of Oregon Cities. Financial strain in our budget is also being felt beyond the general fund due to inflationary pressures, unfunded mandates, and other tensions. A prominent example among our special funds is the Supportive Housing Services Program, which needs to rebalance funding after a revised income tax revenue forecast from the Metro Regional Government. Working together with contracted service providers and advisory bodies and the Board of Commissioners, the Housing Services Department is taking a phased approach to implementing the cuts needed to rebalance the SHS budget over multiple fiscal years, including this proposed budget. Lastly, uncertainty in federal support is challenging the stability of services provided directly by Washington County departments or indirectly with pass-through dollars used by community-based partners. The organization has done a great deal in the face of these challenges. In keeping with the board's budget priorities and principles, the organization's mission, vision, and guiding principles from the recently adopted strategic plan update, we've made careful reductions in the last 4 years to balance our general fund and better position the organization for financial stability in the future. As we face the 5th year with our significant gap between general fund revenues and expenditures, our efforts are particularly difficult because we've exhausted some strategies used in prior years. Simply put, our budget balancing work will need to go further than before. I'll speak to the actions taken in previous years later this evening. Our departments and offices have done courageous work in identifying reduction scenarios at 10, 13, and 17% levels. We've asked for these options because we know a one-size-fits-all approach will not work for our complicated organization where many lines are mandated by state law or need to be carefully balanced across complicated systems of service or both. Washington County is also not alone in having to budget for unfunded or underfunded mandates handed down by the regional, state, or federal governments. Counties have been delegated authority from the state government to provide shared services with the state, such as courts, jails, sheriff's office, local land use and health authority, as well as many others. Property taxes were originally meant to cover counties' portions of these shared services, but new or expanded requirements handed over time have added to our costs, especially if no ongoing funding arrives along with the increased local responsibility. Legislative changes can create mandates and underfunding quickly and at an overwhelming scale when compared to a property tax system that, by design, grows slowly. The budget impacts of these unfunded or underfunded mandates are sometimes difficult to quantify because the expense often comes in the form of increased workloads for staff or incremental increases in facility maintenance, information technology, human resources, or other support needed for new or existing personnel. I'll emphasize that every general fund expenditure has been scrutinized as part of the budget balancing process. This includes our decades-long practice of general fund transfers to the Major Street Transportation Improvement Program, also known as MISTIP, and the Washington County Cooperative Library Services, WCCLS. In the days prior to property tax reforms of the 1990s, Washington County voters had approved 2 serial levies funding these 2 service areas. The tax rates for both levies were absorbed into Washington County's permanent rate tax once changes to the Oregon property tax system took effect. Budgets adopted since that time, except in recent fiscal years, where general fund rebalancing prompted reductions, have included general fund transfers that were proportionate to the amounts from the original serial levies. An unintended consequence of nearly 3 decades of these transfers is that every remaining general fund service was effectively made a lower priority than transportation or libraries. The proposed budget includes 17% reductions of these 2 legacy transfers of the general fund dollars. I will go further into a description once I talk about the budget summary. This incremental reclaiming of the permanent rates full capacity continues a 2-year-long reimagining process around how transportation services, library services could be funded in the future. The result is yet another step towards stabilizing a wider range of services supported by the general fund.
The blue on the top right, what's that category?
Yes, that includes other non-operating sources. And Mr. Mills, we will talk more about that once during Mr. Steyer's part of the presentations in the General Budget Committee. Thank you for catching that missing label. Each of my budget messages over the last 4 years has cautioned the appropriate use of one-time funding, and this year is no exception. Using revenue sources that we know will eventually expire to fund ongoing operations and services essentially creates what I've called a cliff effect. Over-reliance on one-time revenue to support ongoing community services masks the limited capacity of our traditional revenue sources, such as our constrained property tax revenue. Our cautious approach to each use of one-time revenue sources in this proposed budget is described in your budget summary. The outcomes of these budget balancing decisions we'll briefly touch on this evening when we do get to the budget summary portion. Although layoffs and community impact of service cuts were minimized as much as possible, there was no escaping significant general fund reductions after less damaging actions have already been taken over the previous 4 years. That said, reductions in this proposed budget were made to scale our operations back and even eliminate some services altogether. Perhaps surprisingly, some limited investments can also be found in the proposed budget, each corresponding with the board's strategic goals of modernizing the organization and investing in our ability of our employees to better serve the public. So what does this mean when we're talking about cuts? It means that even though we may need to reduce staffing levels, we want the Washington County organization that compensates employees competitively, equips our employees with the tools and systems needed to serve our community, and provides services that can sustainably be supported to more effectively and strategically serve our community in the future. The proposed budget anticipates the need to study our options for revenue in the long term. Planning has already begun on the replacement of levies for public safety and library services coming to the ballot this November. Under Oregon's property tax system, these local option levies allow the county to pursue higher tax rates over 5-year periods, so long as voters approve them. We have increased our reliance on local option levies in years since the enhancement of property tax forms in the 1990s in order to fund community services beyond the capacity of the county's permanent rate. Staff within the county administrative office, finance, and some other departments have begun looking into potential revenue sources beyond our current property tax system. And this has been directed by our Board of Commissioners, and we will be working with our Board of Commissioners through this upcoming year and the years ahead. So now I'm going to transition into the budget summary. Economic conditions. Washington County's economic outlook faces uncertainty going into fiscal year 25-26. The Oregon Economic and Revenue Forecast released in March 2025 indicates that Oregon's economy is losing momentum relative to the national economy over the past year. In 2024, some of Washington County's largest corporations face job cuts. Trade wars and federal spending threaten to further depress economic activity, contributing to more uncertainty. Federal executive orders may lead to decreases in federal grant funding and reduced services provided to communities within the county. In addition to the state economic forecast, the Portland Metro Chamber released its assessment of the state economy in March 2025. The Metro is adding jobs but losing trade sector jobs. In 2024, there were declines in the information and financial sectors. Private education and healthcare sectors are leading job growth. Near to medium forecast risks include fluctuations in oil prices, trade tensions, immigrations, pandemics, wildfires, Cascadia earthquake, persistent inflation, and as I mentioned, the federal fiscal uncertainties. So let's move just to our general fund fiscal sustainability. This proposed budget successfully closes our $20.5 million gap between revenues and expenditures. I want to repeat what I said earlier. Local governments have a responsibility of an annual balanced budget that is ultimately adopted by the elected body. We do not and are not able to adopt budgets with deficits. I want to just stress that because that has been something within the media and of community question, given the fiscal uncertainty at the federal level. So our general fund gap has two parts. One, a mismatch between the restricted property tax revenue and the growing cost of services to the community, and a decreased strategic investment, or known as SIP, revenue due to 2 expiring agreements. About half of the general fund gap, about $9.9 million, is due to their constrained property taxes not keeping up with anticipated costs like health insurance and retirements, as you see on this slide. Property taxes are Washington County's primary source of revenue, paying for general government programs and services in the general fund. As I've mentioned before, but I want to continue to highlight this, under Oregon's Measures 5 and 50, which reduced taxes and introduced growth limits in the 1990s, increases in assessed values on property from year to year are limited to 3%, plus the value of new construction. For Washington County, this has historically resulted in an annual increase in property tax revenue between about 4.2 and 4.8%. The assumption underlying in this proposed budget is 4.25%. This chart illustrates how permanent property tax rates in the 3-county region compare to one another and to the rate of population growth in each county that have been experienced since the permanent rates were established in 1997. As the chart indicates, temporary local option levies have been approved by Washington County voters in the recent years to close the gap between community need and service level. For Washington County, those are the blue bars that you see on the slide. These still do not put Washington County on a level playing field with neighboring counties. In this chart, we are comparing to Multnomah and Clackamas counties. An additional limiting factor involves how any serial property tax levy that was in effect prior to Measure 50 was rolled back and made part of each local government's permanent rate. Washington County voters had approved 2 such levies at that point in time. I've already mentioned how in the last 2 years we've had to relook at those 2 levies and how they are considered within our general fund. I also want to note on this slide, despite having the 2nd largest population in Oregon and being one of the fastest growing counties over the last decade, Washington County has faced the challenge of maintaining a balanced general fund for over 30 years with the lowest permanent rate within the region. And to make matters even more challenging, the general fund rebalancing has had to happen using resources that included legacy policy actions, making significant changes to WCCLS and MISTIP. The percentages on this slide, the 37%, the 53%, and 59% reflect the population growth within the 3 counties between 97 and 2024. So if you would take a per capita of taxes spent with population rate, we are just simply not keeping up with our needs to serve our Washington County community members. On the other half of the general fund gap, and so I spoke about the blue gap, which is the revenues versus expenditures. I'm now going to move to the SIP loss portion of this graph. This results from the expiration of the 2005 strategic investment agreements this year, which caused a $10.6 million drop in the transfer from the SIP fund to the general fund. SIP revenue is considered in lieu of property taxes because the agreements abate some of the property taxes as an economic incentive to encourage large-scale investments and job creation by private companies. As the tax abatement allowed by these agreements is temporary, the revenue is also limited in duration. The 2 SIP agreements expiring this year, one with Intel and the other with Genentech, both abated some property taxes for a 15-year period. Fees, both those required by Oregon's SIP law and those negotiated in the agreements with both companies, were collected during these 15-year periods. At the time the Intel and Genentech SIP agreements expired, all property tax abatements stopped. SIP fees will no longer be collected, and the value of the associated land, buildings, and equipment returned to the tax rolls. That means that the county keeps 16.3 cents of each dollar. For Washington County, this is a net result in fewer dollars in revenue because the fees collected by the SIP agreements and retained by the county were at a higher rate than when it gets released back onto the property tax rolls. And so this resulted in our net impact to our general fund. I want to underscore this is just expiration of these agreements. This is not a reflection of the partnership of Intel and Genentech within our community. The county has benefited, and our county services and community have benefited from these revenues. In this fifth consecutive year of general fund cuts required to produce a balanced proposed budget, less damaging options were no longer on the table. This slide depicts the gaps closed in the general fund over the next 5 years. I've previously showed these subsequent slides, and something is happening on the formatting on the screen. The formatting in your handouts is right, so I apologize for that view. We've got a few extra spaces in there. I will not go through the balancing actions over the last 4 years. In previous discussions with your budget committee, I have reviewed these, but wanted to include them in your packet for your information. In addition to our mission and vision, we have guiding principles in our board-adopted strategic plan update. Starting in fall of 2024, the Board of Commissioners have been in active financial discussions, which have culminated in January of 2025 in the Board of Commissioners budget direction to me, County Administrator, Budget Officer. And this has culminated in the budget principles and priorities. We have included this as a handout within your packet, so you can refer to this easily while we go through budget presentations. And we have shared these with your budget committee, the budget principles and priorities. So once again, in the spirit of time, I'm not going to walk through those this evening, but they are in your slide deck for your reference. Yes, yes. Thank you for that question. The question was, are the principles and priorities different? Yes. The Board of Commissioners spent time in 3 different roundtables really talking about each and every word within the principles and priorities, and really having, from a staff perspective, really good dialogue to make sure that it provided clarity and also addressing what we were facing this year. Mm-hmm. So how did we achieve general fund balance, and what was that process that was used? Instead of pursuing temporary strategies meant to wait out declines in general fund revenue, the proposed budget achieves balance through permanent reductions in services, and they were selected strategically amongst 10, 13, and 17% options brought forward by departments. The departments used the Board of Commissioners, budget principles, and priorities as a guide. Using this approach, a total of 73.5 full-time equivalent positions are eliminated in the general fund, contributing to almost half of the $26.1 million in the total general fund savings. This amount is a bit slightly more than the 20.5 forecasted for a critical reason. We know that our financial footing is questionable, as I've already highlighted the economic forecast, and so this provides a bit of breathing room as we move forward this next year. We also realized, and our departments realized, that a one-size-fits-all approach does not address our diverse service suite. I want to underscore that we do, as staff, hold uncertainty with the federal funding landscape and what that could mean to our operating budget and through operating funds from the state, which are federal pass-through funds. The following process was used when arriving at general fund reduction numbers. This context is important to understand the numbers found elsewhere in the proposed budget. So let me walk through these. Number 1, baseline budget assumptions. The Finance Department projected a baseline budget floor that associated assessed value growth, increased health care insurance growth, growing retirement cost, higher cost of materials, and so forth. 2, requested budgets. Using this projected base budget as a starting point, county departments and offices submitted requested budgets to the County Administrative Office and Finance Department, including a range of general fund reduction scenarios at the 10, 13, and 17% levels. In some cases, departments also submitted requested investments, so adds to their budget. Budget balancing decisions. 3, the County Administration Office applied the budget guidance from the Board of Commissioners, including the budget principles and priorities that you have printed out. We use those to decide how to bring the general fund and other parts of the proposed budget into balance. 4, outcomes in the proposed budget. The proposed budget shows the results of this process using standard tables and narratives depicting budgeted resources and requirements. The standard information is provided at all service level of detail, including total budget, functional area, funds, and org units. For each of these levels, proposed budget amounts are shown side by side with amounts over time over the 3 most recent fiscal years, including modified budget numbers for the current fiscal year of 24-25. It is important to note that the standard tables in the 25-26 proposed budget summary will compare the amounts in the 25-26 proposed budget with the amounts in the 24-25 modified budget, not the baseline budget. So we will walk through that once we get into the budget presentations. That paragraph is also printed in your budget summary, so you may want to just read over that a few times. And really what that talks about is how you look year over year. Because the 10, 13, or 17% reductions were applied to the baseline budget, a comparison of the proposed budget amounts to each program's fiscal year 24-25 modified budget may appear lower than the reduction totals in the description and the 2 reduction-related tables to follow. I will most simply say this. Anytime you capture financial information, it is that point in time. So we have to use a point in time to base reductions from, because there's constant changes in especially expenditures over time. Part of this explanation has to do with the interaction between the general fund and special funds, interactions that are not captured as part of the budget baseline budget process. Special fund reductions in the proposed budget can also contribute to general fund savings by reducing general fund transfers or matching requirements. This is part of the reason that the board has structured two supplemental budgets as part of the annual budget process, because it's moving parts at all times of a fiscal year. Within, if you do want to turn to pages 15 to 17, that's where in your budget document it starts to talk about the reductions. Well, tonight I am talking about the reductions within the proposed budget. When our presenters will be presenting on the department budgets, I want to lift up that it can be challenging to talk about reductions, and sometimes we lose sight of the services that we still continue to deliver to the community day after day. So I just want to note I will be talking specifically reductions right now and will not be discussing those ongoing services. So first, general fund transfers. A $12 million reduction is made in the general fund transfers that have historically funded the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, called MISTIP, and the Washington County Collaborative Library Services, WCCLS. Relative to the baseline budget, the general fund reduction to MISTIP is $8.7 million and $3.9 million for WCCLS. How does this align to the board principles and priorities? These reductions to the general fund transfers, which would be a third such reduction in as many years, is incrementally creating a more playing field for evaluating and prioritizing all general fund supported community services. The potential long-term transition away from a solely pay-as-you-go strategy for transportation improvement to a more common use of bond debt is under continued consideration and reflects the board's principle of evaluating both long-term capital and operating needs of the organization, as well as positioning the county for the future. Lastly, the approach supports the board's budget priorities for supporting a connected multimodal system transportation and ensuring that any proposal for new or expanded services must include new revenue. Public safety and justice. A $7.1 million general fund reduction is made across this portfolio of services. I do want to underscore that we look at public safety and justice as an interconnected service portfolio. When Ms. Erin Calvert speaks to public safety and justice, she will talk more to your budget committee about this. General fund support for this functional area grows by $2.4 million, or 2% overall in the proposed budget when compared to the current modified budget for 24-25. Reductions are largely made in vacant patrol and jail deputy positions within the sheriff's office, representing $4.1 million, housing subsidies, and 4.7 full-time equivalent vacant positions in the Community Corrections Department, valued at $1.2 million. A new approach to providing juvenile detention services through a contract with Marion County, as well as 2 reduced positions, and 19 full-time equivalent positions in the Child Support Division of the District Attorney's Office of a non-mandated service that the Oregon Department of Justice has agreed can be merged into the state's child support program. I want to repeat that those services would be turned to the state to deliver those services versus the county delivering those services. So how does this align with the board's principles and priorities? The board's principles and priorities guided the general fund budget balancing in several ways for this functional area. The departments in this system of service, much of which is mandated under state law, are the largest recipients of the general fund resources at 43.7% and benefit from the public safety levy, one of the only 2 local option levies current and past boards have routinely referred to the voters since Oregon's constrained property tax system was last reformed in the 90s. The board's principles that apply to the reductions and investments in the proposed budget include objectively evaluating for the future, understanding service impacts on community members' daily lives and balancing systems of service, and continuing pursuit of a one Washington County approach. The approach to budget balancing in this area also reflects the board's priorities of valuing and retaining employees, delivering public safety and justice in a way that delivers and builds community trust, and prioritizing revenue on county, state shared services, and addressing known budget requirements that deliver mandated services, such as juvenile detention and jail staffing. I'll now move on to housing, health, and human services. A $3.3 million reduction is made in this area, with the overall general fund growth in this functional area at about 3% when compared to the modified budget for the current budget year of 24-25. Most of the general fund reductions are experienced by the Department of Health and Human Services, largely through the elimination of 5 public health division positions, including vacant public health nurse positions that will reduce programming in the Nurse Family Partnership Program of about $2.4 million, 2 positions within the Animal Services Division, resulting in the reduction of Saturday hours of operation, a reduction of 1.25 positions serving veterans, which may increase wait time and benefit delays, and a shift in personnel contracted services for behavioral health. So how does this relate to the board principles and priorities? This system of service receives the least amount of general fund resources, 3.1% in fiscal year 24-25, but receives a significant revenue from state and federal grants, some of which mandate a minimum threshold of service. The proposed budget follows board principles by objectively evaluating services with a priority on mandated or those required services, and understanding service impacts on community members' lives. Board priorities that are upheld include partnering with the state and community to protect public and behavioral health. By pursuing these principles and priorities, the general fund balancing achieved in these proposed budget safeguards many of the mandated services in health and human services, while leveraging grant funds with the strategic use of matching general fund dollars. This approach also seeks to maximize partnerships with community-based providers, thereby minimizing the impact on community members relying on county services. Finally, the board's priority on support both for affordable housing and supportive housing through state and regional partnerships, too many P's in that sentence, is upheld. I'll now move on to general government. A $2.8 billion general government reduction is made in this functional area. Overall, this functional area grows by $1.6 million or 7% when compared to the modified budget. General fund reductions are primarily experienced in the county administration office in the newly evolved name of the Office of Access and Opportunity. This was the Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement. These cuts include the elimination of the Sustainability Office and positions such as the Assistant County Administrator, a Program Coordinator, and a Program Specialist. Reductions are also made in the Facilities position by eliminating 5 positions and bringing previously contracted services in-house. Information Technology Services eliminates 3 positions. Other savings in the general fund are achieved by eliminating 1 or fewer full-time equivalent positions in each of the following: the County Auditor's Office, County Council, Emergency Management, Elections Division, and Human Resources. So how does this approach uphold our principles and priorities? We objectively evaluated services with a priority on mandated services and enhancing or evaluating short, mid, and long-term fiscal sustainability. It also supports the board's priority of addressing immediate, mid, or long-term budget issues. A clear example of this is how the proposed budget preserves assessment and taxation staff who are critical to state-mandated appraisal and property tax collection services, benefiting not only the county organization, but every municipal government and school district serving the community. Minimizing the impact of cuts on emergency management also supports the board's priority of planning and preparing for emergencies and disasters, including those affected by climate change. The board's principle of positioning the organization for the future and its priority on valuing and retaining employees are also emphasized by minimizing reductions in key internal service departments such as County Council, Facility, Fleet, and Parks, Finance, Human Resources, and Information Technology. These departments are engaged in ongoing efforts to equip employees with the tools, facilities, systems, and processes they need to better serve the community in the years ahead. These departments also support the full organization in meeting mandates and maintaining compliance with policy, laws, and rules. Moving on to land use and transportation. An almost $300,000 general fund reduction is made in this functional area. Overall, this functional area decreases by $25,000 or 1% when compared to its modified budget of modified budget for fiscal year 24-25. General fund reductions are experienced across services provided by current planning, including code compliance and plan review. Service levels are expected to be primarily maintained by replacing general fund support with revenue derived from fees. How does this align with principles and priorities? This approach advances the board's principle of enhancing and evaluating short, mid, and long-term fiscal sustainability, as well as a priority of focusing on a financial plan to address immediate, mid, and long-term budget issues. Culture, education, and recreation. Outside of the general fund transfer to libraries mentioned earlier, a general fund reduction totals of $80,000 for this functional area. Overall general fund growth for this area is about 3% when compared to the modified budget. General fund reductions include $63,000 reduction in park services through adjusting 3 seasonal recreation positions, and reduction in agriculture extension services that reduces administrative services provided by OSU Extension. So how does this advance the board's principle or align with the board's principles and priorities? This approach advances the board's principle of enhancing and evaluating short, mid, and long-term fiscal stability, as well as focusing on a financial plan. It also aligns with the board's priority of pursuing new or expanded services through new revenue, and is being followed given that the library services are funded by a second local option levy regularly referred by the board to the voters. Finally, the board's priority of focusing countywide revenue on countywide services is being supported by the transition of the West Slope Library away from being a direct service of the county, largely benefiting a specific community in the urban unincorporated area, to a nonprofit operating model. In addition to property tax dollars, the county receives other sources of revenue. These sources are limited in either term or amount and are used in one time or categorized as one time in nature to the property tax revenue, and have been used to pay for both one-time expenditures and to backfill ongoing costs not funded by the property tax revenue in the general fund. Within your book, there is an explanation of our strategic investment program that further describes how we've been aligning our SIP program, portion of those SIP dollars to ongoing operating needs, and then a portion also to one-time operating needs. Gain share. The Oregon legislature created the Gain Share program to enable eligible local governments to share in the state income tax revenues generated from jobs created under SIP agreements. One of the several local recipients receiving Gain Share funds, Washington County, is largely focusing its $9 million annual of this limited duration source of revenue in its proposed budget to one-time capital projects for facility and transportation improvements. ARPA, the county is proud to say that we had fully obligated our ARPA dollars by the deadline. This is in the same fashion that we had also fully obligated all CARES funding. So we are now going to action into the execution of those contracts and are on track to have all those funds exhausted by the deadline of December 31st, 2026. Although the general fund balancing is prompting reductions, I had previously spoke about the investments within our workforce. Oregon PERS requires employees to pay 6% of their wages into a retirement system, but PERS gives employers the option of paying the amount on behalf of its employees. The 6% employee contribution is often considered out in the public as the PERS pickup. Washington County has provided the PERS pickup for deputies in the sheriff's office who are members of the Washington County Police Officers Association through their negotiated collective bargaining agreement. All other employees were required to pay their 6% contribution through payroll deductions. This proposed budget includes funding to provide the 6% PERS pickup to Washington County employees not already receiving the pickup using projected cost of living adjustments. So what this means is that we will not be paying COLA for this year and instead paying the 6% PERS pickup. When PERS had taken effect and employers had the option of either doing the employer paying or the employee paying, Washington County at that point in time had said we will take that into account in market studies and we will maintain market for employee wages. Unfortunately, we have not kept up with market for employee wages, and it has made recruitment and retention far more challenging. And in addition, many more local governments have moved to paying the PERS pickup, which also means that we are an outlier in this area. Sig? General market for each position. The market, for example, for our facilities technicians within our facilities department, or the market for a planner within land use and transportation. So the market for that wage to comparables. Correct. Enterprise resource planning. This is a multi-year project that will replace the county's legacy business management system that provides the county's core business functions, including payroll, human resources, procurement, accounting, and financial reporting. By replacing the existing 23-year-old system, the new enterprise resource planning tool will improve efficiency and effectiveness of organization-wide operations. I will just share with the Budget Committee for awareness, as I've shared with your board, with the Board of Commissioners. We were able to produce this printed book to you by I'll call it the hair of our chinny chin chin. And what is a challenge for us right now is our HR system and our finance system do not talk to each other. So from connecting just and determining what is our point in time, our FTE count in the budget, and what are filled positions, that I hope in the future that's an easier question than our current state. And so to get that accuracy needs a human to intervene and to actually proof that information. And so we came up to issues about 2-3 weeks before finalization, where we realized these numbers are not syncing and they're not talking to each other. So that is just one real-time issue that we're having with our current technology and software system. Additional capital investments within your proposed budget include nearly 24 capital projects that are at current various stages of implementation. These are supported by a variety of funding sources. No general fund reductions to these capital projects are included in the proposed budget. So the overall capital budget for facilities remains flat. The largest group of projects involve overdue maintenance and improvements to several critical facilities operating 24 hours a day within the public safety and justice system. Foremost among those improvements to the Washington County Jail Law Enforcement Center, with an estimated project cost of $57.4 million. Additional critical facilities receiving maintenance and system replacements include HVAC replacements for the Justice Services Building at $5.8 million and Community Correction Center at $2 million. ARPA and SIP funds are largely supporting these projects. The next largest capital project is the Center for Addiction Treatment and Triage Treatment and Treatment, CAT, with a total estimated cost of $59.7 million. Funding comes from more than a dozen sources, including behavioral health funds, Measure 110, opiate settlement funds, and grant funds from healthcare partners, including Care Oregon, Providence Health Plan, Trillium Health Plan, and YAM Health CCO. Information Technology Services, total general fund contribution of $239,000 to its IT capital projects is eliminated in this proposed budget, leaving gain share, departmental resources, or fund balance as potential support for new technology or replacement of aging systems. We feel comfortable with this proposal. However, it is an area to watch in the future. Part of this is because the large investment that's being made in the enterprise resource planning system at this point in time. I also want to just take the opportunity to point out we are now headed into our third year of our capital improvement planning. So this also allows us to plan out further, incorporating not just transportation facilities, but also looking at parks and IT within that CIP process. Transportation improvement, the 17% reduction, or $8.7 million in the general fund transfer to MISTIP, is mitigated somewhat by board policy of ensuring that the transferred amount grows in proportion with countywide assessed value growth, and that's assumed at 4.25 of the budget, and after removing the $12.5 million in debt service before any reduction is taken. In addition, this reduction is expected to have minimal impact on the immediate project delivery, given the board's authorized sale of $150 million in bonds to ensure timely completion of remaining projects in MISTEP 3D, 3E, and bonding cost-sharing cycles. Continued reductions in the general fund transferred to MISTEP will affect the number or scope of projects that the program can undertake within future years. The Department of Land Use and Transportation is working in partnership with County Administration Office, Finance, and will be presenting to the board a resilient transportation funding strategy as part of our revenue options to explore viable options for a continued transportation system. On pages 23 through 28 of your proposed budget, you can see a table that lists out the general fund reductions. I will not spend time going through that. Also on pages 23 through 29, you will see what we previously called the budget equity lens has now evolved language to the access and opportunity lens. Part of the why, you may ask, is we are trying to use more simple language that resonates with people. And when you think of really equity, you're thinking about increasing the access and opportunity for community members to thrive.
You mentioned the board had authorized $150 million of bond sale for MISTEP. When did that happen, and are those bonds already placed, or is this something that was just recently done?
We are working through that process. The board just authorized the sale of those bonds within this last month. We've been working towards that point over this last year. This helps us move those projects forward, addresses the cost escalation that we were seeing, and also provides project assurance that these projects are going to continue in our bond timeline.
Is that bond just for MISTEP, or does it include the libraries as well?
No, it is only for transportation projects. So as the board continues discussions on revenue options, bonding options will be part of that revenue option for capital projects in total.
Okay. Does it require a vote to the voters?
It depends on the bond amount and what the revenue source is. So within our CIP, one project that we will speak to at a later date is we are trying to secure planning dollars match at the state for a new courthouse. That is a significant bond, and that would need new revenue that we currently do not have within our existing base.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's keep moving. And let's take a high altitude look at the actual document. And as a reminder, and thank you for that question, Jeff, and we'll get into more of those kind of questions and answers as we meet with you on May 14th and 15th. So if you look at your budget book, it's separated by tabs or folders. So this evening we've spent time just with a verbal overview in section 1, which is the budget message, trends and initiatives. And then you will move into the operating budget, and that will take you pages 52 to 398. 378. Numbers rolling in my head at this point. Your capital budget portion of your budget is pages 379 to 416, and your non-operating 417 to 364. Now for the service districts, the section you'll want to focus on for your service district is pages 465 to 477. And then there is a summary of various tables and schedules, and those are on pages 478 to 522. I'm going to go forward one slide, and I'm going to come back to this slide, and I'll talk about the reader's guide. So I want to highlight on pages 465 to 477. This has been a question lifted up by some of our special district members. Just tell me what pages I need to focus on as a special district. By all means, dive deep into the full budget, but just to be helpful to you, there is on the first page of the service district page, you will see where those service districts are broken out for ease of access for you to refer to. I'll now go back to the reader's guide. And I apologize, I had to find the right page for myself. The reader's guide is on 514. And what the reader's guide helps walk through is how to read the budget. It highlights definitions for different areas. We outlined the budget process, how budget adjustments can be made, adopted, modified budget. What may be helpful on page 517 is a definition sheet of government soup, or also called commonly used acronyms. And if we're missing any, please let us know as you're reviewing, and we will make sure to add them to the list. Then on page 519, there is a glossary of commonly used terms. Once again, if there's terms that you may not know, please let us know so that we can add for future budgets. I will also note one of the changes that we've made this year is there used to be a section called Trends and Initiatives in the beginning of the document. Based on feedback that we've heard, we've actually included the same information that previously was in the Trends and Initiatives and embedded that within the department and made it more robust. So the Trends and Initiatives, department overview, the department story are all together with the financials. Part of that is to increase readability, not only for you all as budget committee members, but also community members who may read our budget and budgets can be complicated and hard enough already. And also, if you don't have an understanding of how the county operates, it helps pair the qualitative information with the fiscal information. This is just a summary financial table just for your information, just as far as how to read the summary financial tables. This, and I should note, this table can be found on page 39. Another improvement, that we've made is that the page numbers in the book should match the page numbers in the PDF that you have online. Also, when our presenters are presenting, they will make sure to mention page numbers to your budget committee so you can follow along within the presentations. So now let's move to how to submit questions and budget materials. We are now in the budget review period, which is a 2-week period. You as committee members can send questions to budget_finance@washingtoncounty.org.gov at any time. You could submit them this evening if you wanted to go to work on the budget and get us your questions. The first round deadline that we would ask that it would be helpful for us if you could get us your questions by May 7th. Then we can ensure we can have the first round of questions published to you by May 13th. The second, and May 13th is the day before your budget committee meets. Then The second round deadline will be May 15th, and we will republish them to you on May 16th. We would ask out of courtesy, please don't wait till May 15th to get us questions. Some questions need more staff time than other questions, so please get us those questions early. We take all of your questions in, populate them on a spreadsheet, not only share them out to the budget committee, but also post them to the website so they're publicly available. At your budget committee orientation, Bob was actually the individual that asked the question, is there ability for us to have like a real-time look at us populating the questions? Unfortunately, we don't have that technology in place at this point in time, and many times it takes multiple departments to actually factually answer a question. So we're not at that real time yet. Maybe it's something we can aspire to in the future, but I want to follow up on that question. And as a reminder to your budget, to your committee, as well as members of the public, all budget materials are posted at WashingtonCountyOR.gov Finance and Budget. The budget document should be posted to our website. I'm sorry, I'm looking to Steve King, our budget manager, for affirmation to our website at this point in time, so it is live, as well as there has been a press release issued for awareness. Any questions on?
Yeah, just on process real quickly. Are you expecting like one email with all the questions? Should we send them in when we have the thought? Like, do you care how they're organized, I guess? Like, do we just have a question, we send it, or do you want them all collated? Like,
work at whatever pace is comfortable to you. I've seen, and just to share, I've seen some committee members take sections of the budget and then submit questions by section. Some send as their questions come to them. Some are very organized on an Excel spreadsheet. And so like just what
all of those are okay.
All of those are okay. Just please don't wait till the last minute. Okay. Any other questions on this? Okay. The public comment will be, can you hold that, Karen? Let me come back to that. Within your packet of materials, there is a sheet on the budget amendment process. As we previously discussed, my responsibility is to deliver you a balanced proposed budget. It is your responsibility to deliberate and approve a proven budget to move forward to the board. That may include budget amendments. This form lists revenue counts and expenditure accounts. So, for example, if you want to reinstate for a reduction, there needs to be an offsetting revenue for that increase in expenditure, because we need to make sure that we at all times of the process are approving a balanced budget. I will also state that ongoing expenditures do need an ongoing revenue source to stay true to the fiscal direction set by the board and that we've been working towards within our budget process. Any questions on amendments? Melissa? We will get this to you electronically. Brenda Bartlett will email that to you. She's behind me, not to the side of me, so I had to look behind. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So now we will review the summary of a schedule, and this is a handout. I will have John help me hand out. We accidentally omitted from your packet. I'm going to wait till I see the chair and Jerry give me a sign. That means that they've got it because they're in the middle. Okay. All right, we're good. So the summary on the slide is just a very high level. So the handout that you have in front of you goes deeper. So let's go to May 15th, and I'm going to talk through all budget committees. So just for special district members, some of this may not apply to you. So on Wednesday, May 15th, we will be convening the General Washington County Budget Committee. We'll go through welcome, then move into the general government area. You can see the areas that we will be covering. Then we'll take a break and continue. Then move into land use and transportation, public safety and justice. And then there will be, Karen, to your question, there will be public comment at the end of that day. Yes. Right now, these times are all approximate. Staff are still working on the presentations, and so just note this is just draft, and this is subject to change for the Washington County Special Service District for lighting. Then we move to May 16th, Health and Human Services. Deflection, a break, HHS will continue. Culture, education, and recreation, break, and that may include a working lunch. Westside Commons, non-departmental, non-operating budget, other funds, and then we'll end the day with public comment. And you'll continue that meeting to May 20th. Tuesday, May 20th is a welcome ESPD, then roll into Urban Road Maintenance District. Then we'll have the public hearing for ESPD and URMD. And then we do a break, committee swap, go into North Bethany County Service District for roads, public hearing, deliberation, approval, break, lunch, committee swap, and then Service District for lighting, and then Washington County budget, hearing, deliberation, approval, and adjourn. We do have time set aside on May 22nd from 9 to 12 if we need more time. So what does that mean in action? If there's more time, more than likely that would be for the general Washington County budget. We could have push some of these times out to use that time on May 22nd. So it's better just to reserve the time and cancel it at a later date. Okay, seeing questions? Jeff.
Thanks. I'm just a little confused on the days and dates. So the handout that you just passed out and went through starts off on Wednesday, May 15th. But at the very top, it has the dates of May 14th and 15th, which is what we were originally given as the dates to hold.
Yeah, I apologize. That's a clerical error. It is the 14th and 15th. So
it's Tuesday and Wednesday, May 14th and 15th,
correct,
not Thursday.
correct. It's
Sorry. Okay, sorry. Wednesday the 14th. Okay.
okay. So
Thursday.
just so that,
Right.
just so that we're all clear, and I'm looking at the top of the sheet where it says Wednesday, May 15th, just change the 15 to a 14. And I'm just walking through this also for members of the community who may be listening. Then on Thursday, May 16th, that should actually say May 15th. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for catching that and asking that question.
And then on the back,
Yep.
under Thursday, May 16th, it has, just before 1:45 PM, it has a break. And then just below it currently says 2:45 AM, and it should be PM.
Oh, thank you for that catch too. That would be quite the day. By the way, I'm a morning person, not a night person, so I would be sleeping.
And just to clarify, members of the ESPD ERMs don't need to come to any of the meetings except for the one on Tuesday, May 20th from 9 until about 11.
You are correct, Anthony. Thank you for that. Okay.
Unless they want an excuse to get out of the house.
So, question, if you do have an amendment request, where is that done? Is that, where do you make that request, amendment request?
So, Melissa, you could procedurally make that at any point in time during the budget committee. I would suggest that prior to deliberation would be a good time to actually submit your amendments. The reason why is because staff do need to review also the amendments and to make sure what one may think is, the revenues, expenditures. So feel free to use staff as a resource if you are thinking of doing an amendment to how to structure that. Let us work through what will be the deadline that we need to review and get back to you. It is up to the budget committee though, and I'm saying that let us get you a date, and that's out of courtesy. It is the budget committee's prerogative though. You can make budget amendments on the floor.
Okay, so then, once you make them, they just get discussed in the manner of, so when do you discuss it with the committee? If you made an amendment and the staff look at it and say, okay, this is good, makes sense, then when is it presented to the committee and discussed?
So what I have seen before is a budget committee member in the past has met with me. Tanya, does this make sense, for example, or with the CFO? Do you see any issues with that? No, we see no issues. Budget committee members can do that early. So let's say you have and I'm going to just say the very first area we have, okay, so under general government, county administrative office, you may decide later that right away the next day on May 16th, you want to actually submit a budget amendment on that area to just at least put it on the floor for the budget committee.
Okay, so the fact that these are you have very busy schedule and everything's, moving along, how do you shove in an amendment discussion then? Does that happen at break time or during the working lunch or, because you're jam-packed.
We are jam-packed.
Yeah.
So it can occur during deliberation, as I said.
At the very end?
Yes. Okay. And you can also ask the chair to speak to an amendment you would like to bring forward at any point during.
Okay, then they'd have to figure out how to squeeze it in.
Okay. Can I ask a question, a logistics question? On Wednesday, May 14th and Thursday, May 15th, there are pretty short breaks and working lunches. Do you want us to bring our own lunch, or is lunch provided?
We will be providing lunch because we're working throughout the full day. So lunch is provided specifically for the Washington County General Budget Committee Service District for lighting. The special district meetings, as yours are shorter, we're not providing lunch for those committees.
Okay, so board members, take note of that. You got to take care of your own lunch that day.
I have a logistics question too, maybe more basic. There's obviously a lot of people here, more people here now than there might be during any one of the meetings. But is there a method that's been used to organize the request to speak with the chair? Like, are people putting up their table tent? Okay.
Yeah, good question, Commissioner Snyder. So I don't have a table tent. So thank you, Commissioner Fye. Yeah, just put up the table. That's the easiest visual way to see. Once you're in your budget committee meeting, it's a smaller group, so it's easier to scan that. But it's helpful, especially for the chair as they're volunteering to do this one time.
I'll also share that our staff puts together the presentations, and we have to be very mindful of the fact that there is not time for Q&A on every single one of these line items. So it's best if we follow staff's direction in terms of let us get through a certain segment of the presentations and then go through Q&A, but even then, there's limited time for Q&A, and this is where submitting the questions and answers is really vital.
We'll also have Post-its by your stations, because sometimes it's helpful for you to write down a question so that we can, as Chair Harrington was saying, just get through a certain section of the presentation and then pause for the questions from the committee versus taking the questions throughout, because we are on limited time. Other questions on process, procedure? Jeff?
I had sent an email to John to ask this question. On May 14th and 15th, will you have the ability to do virtual call-in for people who might be out of town from the budget committees to be able to attend virtually?
So we had hoped that the desire was for everyone to be in person. Is there anyone who is not planning to be in person for budget committees? You?
It turns out I had business travel that was booked before these dates were provided.
Okay.
On May 14th and May 20th.
Okay. Will you be able to be on camera?
Yes.
Okay. That has been a challenge for budget committees. We've seen engagement in just the budget committee itself run smoother when you're in person, so that's preferred. Life happens, as we know. Then if you are on camera, to have your camera on, because that's been the other challenge that we've encountered over time. So thank you for lifting that up now, Jeff. Anthony.
I have a parking pass because I'm on BOPTA, but some of the people perhaps don't. Since these are morning meetings and they might go past 2 hours or so, parking is enforced. Has it been communicated? Are people aware of where they can park and the duration of that?
Thank you for that. Brenda will be sending out an email, and yes, we will have parking passes for individuals. Any others? Okay, so now let's move into the closing and any final questions. So I do want to provide just a closing and just also appreciation. Washington County has a long, proud history of delivering many important services our communities rely on. As public employees and elected leaders, many of us are drawn to local government service because of the closeness we feel to the community and the positive impact our efforts have on day-to-day lives. Our commitment to public service is foundational to our professional and personal motivations. That's one reason why the financial situation we find ourselves in feels so discerning. Reducing or, worse, eliminating our services to the public flies in the face of our sense of duty and obligation to our community. After all, we came to these positions to contribute to the community's health, safety, and strength, not to reduce services for them. This commitment to public service is and will drive the organization forward as we continue to deliver community services, even as we take challenging budget reductions. As the last 5 years of proposed budgets indicate, we have also performed our duty to produce balanced proposed budgets as required by law. The math around budget balancing must be correct each year. Over the course of many years, our experience, which other property tax reliance jurisdictions are also experiencing statewide, is revealing a pattern. Oregon's restricted property tax system does not support a sustainable revenue source for funding the level of county services our growing population demands, and that mandates require us to fund. This proposed balanced budget is a result of many difficult decisions that together are bringing us forward on a path toward financial sustainability. I'm truly, truly thankful for the contributions of every employee in service to our community. I want to emphasize that no reduction in our workforce was made based on the quality or value of the work being done. I also want to lift up with appreciation for the leadership of staff in this county, of their thoughtful work. And while there are vacant positions being eliminated in this budget, that is due to their thoughtful planning through this fiscal year to minimize the number of actual layoffs. There are just simply no painless cuts in this budget. I want to actually repeat that as you review this. There are no painless cuts in this budget. They all equate to reduced service level. Finally, I'd like to thank our Board of Commissioners, our department leadership for their guidance they've provided throughout the process. I also appreciate the attention and input provided by you, the Budget Committee, as we work through this proposed budget. Lastly, I'd like to thank our budget team, our partners in departments and offices for the many, many, many hours that it has taken to create this document. Our One Washington County organization is better for the efforts made by everyone to bring forward this proposed budget. With that, I'm happy to answer any more procedural questions that your committee will be taking, and would ask that we hold any budget specific questions for upcoming budget committees meetings. And I'll open the floor to the Budget Committee. I'm going to go back to this slide so it's shown to the public. Public can submit.
At the county level, gotten together with other counties and pushed the state government to rescind the silly limitation on property taxes. Being a homeowner, I won't appreciate what my bill looks like probably, but I think at some point we're going to be unable to support the infrastructure of this county if we don't have more money to do it. It's obvious, so. I hear you.
So Oregon AOC, which is the Association of Oregon Counties, this is on the radar. This is also, I would say, on the radar for League of Oregon Cities. Even a bit stronger for the League of Oregon Cities than it is AOC. However, the story of Washington County, of other counties who are in our similar position, is starting to cause some discussion on this point. Really, I would actually encourage you as community members to also lift up, that we need adequate revenues to fund community priorities. Because to counter that point too, Bruce, there's also the concern on the level of taxation just in general from a sentiment. So, Jeff.
I'd like to piggyback on Bruce's question and ask the same question for the gain share, because it mentioned in your slides that this is expiring in 2030. Does that mean the state could extend it by law, reform it at the same time? What are some of the things that we're doing to lobby that with the state government?
It is set to sunset in 2030. This is part of our, it's been part of the county's ongoing legislative agenda, so we'll address that more within the upcoming budget presentations too. Any other questions?
I think we all want to thank you, Ms. Angie, working with your staff for all the thoughtful decision-making that's gone into bringing us this balanced proposed budget for our consideration through the Budget Committee process. Thank you.
And with that, Chair, would you like to ask for adjournment of all 3 Budget Committee meetings?
Yes, I am seeking a motion to adjourn the Washington County Service District for Lighting Budget Committee, the combined ESPD URMD Budget Committee, and the North Bethany Service District for Roads, Community Service District for Roads Budget Committee. We have a motion from Mr. Young, a second from Anthony Mills. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. I know I join my Board of Commissioner colleagues in looking forward to seeing you all on the respective Budget Committee days. And thank you in advance for all of your thoughtful reading and thoughtful questions on the proposed budget. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye now.
You get to look at
We're adjourned.